wanna see good news. You don't see on regular TV. From another perspective, something relative to your needs. And we gonna have deep subjects, and we gonna turn the lens. And there's no topic we won't skip. So please don't miss weekly. Tune in to weekly check-in. Weekly check-in. Weekly check-in. Weekly check-in. Tune in to weekly check-in. Weekly check-in.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. What up, homegirl?
Hey.
We are at another weekly check-in. Today we have the two editors, Kaya Shivers, editor-in-chief, and
Rolanda Spencer, managing editor.
we are coming to you with another week that is covering important issues and topics to us on Arc Republic. So let's get it in.
Let's go.
Oh, and you know what, before we get it in, how are you? Because I know there was some hurricanes, some storms that happened.
Yeah, interestingly enough, this hurricane season, we're in New Orleans East. So we haven't had any substantial rain or winds here. Unfortunately, it was more of the people on the coast in like Lake Charles that was hit the hardest with it. And I guess that's about an hour outside of an hour east of where we are.
Yeah. Yes, I think it's a little longer.
South. Yeah, of where we are.
It's wet. East. It's east. It's east.
Southeast.
South,
I think that's it. Yeah. So I mean, we've been fortunate to not have to evacuate or anything like that. So we're good.
Right, because my mother's side is in Lafayette, and so Lafayette got hit.
Okay.
Lafayette got hit as well.
Mm-hmm.
So they're doing some cleanup and things like that. So it was a really kind of interesting week, I would say, in Louisiana.
Oh, definitely.
Did the NFAC come to New Orleans?
That I'm not sure about. I haven't heard anything because I know that they are really like doing a lot of work around not having groups converge in New Orleans.
Oh, okay, yeah, because so for those of you, the NFAC is the not fucking around coalition. That is a coalition that identifies as an armed group, an armed group that is about black power. So they did come to Lafayette. My cousin actually took some photos of that.
Okay.
All right, so let's get into it. What we got today?
All right. So the first thing, let's talk about what's going on with COVID right now and the way that it is hitting the pockets of Americans all over. And, to the point where we have an article in that you wrote, Dr. Shivers, about the burgeoning, not just homelessness, but hunger of people around the United States. So what are your thoughts about that? What prompted you to even look at that as an issue surrounding the pandemic?
Right. So I've been following COVID-19 in Italy and in the United States. And so that was something that was said months ago, in the early part of the year when I was looking at it in Italy, because they were going through some food security issues. And I knew that it was going to be worse in the United States for a whole number of reasons. So I'm not surprised. But the numbers are showing like it's staggering. So staggering that the government put in place something called like a federal food program that was under the pandemic budget in order to handle what they knew would come, because people lost all of their jobs. And since May, it's called the farmers, I think it's farmers to families distribution, where they get farmers to load up boxes and they distribute the boxes to families all across the United States. They're about to enter into their third round of distribution. Since May, just this program alone has distributed 100 million boxes of food. I'm
Wow.
hearing reports of people doing food distribution and having to do food distribution in the parking lots of sports arenas. There's like
Mhm.
18,000, 20,000 families, cars lined up, for miles for people, people trying to get food. And it's only going to get worse because, the height of harvest season for the most part, is ending. So you have harvest ending, food shortage growing, and the Rona getting stronger, right? So now, like, I don't know how it is in the States, but here in Europe, in like Italy, Spain, UK, France, they're actually revising and moving to stricter lockdown measures because
Wow.
coronavirus cases are increasing. And if it's going to be like it was earlier, the United States is only going to mimic the things that have happened in Europe, but on a broader scale.
Okay. So with this, how is it impacting those who already receive public aid in the form of food stamps and things like that? Because I do know that the government in the states that were most hard hit with the pandemic, they automatically allotted the maximum amount of food stamps that a household could get based on the number of people that were there. So would they be entitled to the same food program, or is it, is it
Yeah, so they
something
can
different?
be so they can be a part of the food program, and I think there was like an extra 100 and something dollars per child
Mhm.
that was added. I would say the issue is that everybody's at home, and when you at home, all you doing is eating,
Right.
uh, you know, watching TV, and if you're an adult having relations, if you got a boo thing or a bae, but
Right.
so yeah, so people are eating more, but also food costs have gone up. So that's another
Exponentially.
problem. Yeah, so
Right.
food costs have gone up. So even though there's more money, it's still an issue to get by. And what they're also seeing is people that were volunteering at these food distribution centers are now the clients. So it's getting really, 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 it's really huge concern. And this is why Arc Republic and you and some other good folk worked on the Black Farmers Index
Mhm.
to direct people to actually farms that have food readily available and will sell it cheaper than
Right.
what you would get at the market. What are
Okay.
you seeing in New Orleans in terms of with COVID-19, in terms of the numbers and how they handled it? Because I know New Orleans was a hot spot for a minute.
Yeah, and New Orleans still is a hot spot. I think you have a lot of people in New Orleans, in the South, really in particular, that are anti-mask. You have a lot of people here that when people come to New Orleans, they want to party, they want to hang out, they want to kick it, and to not be able to do that is hurting a lot of businesses. So it's like the people of New Orleans, there's a conversation more around the money than the people with the virus. It's more this conversation like, well, maybe you'll get it, maybe you won't, but we still need to open back up. You know what I'm saying? We need to get these businesses open. We need to be able to make money. And I think that is what I'm hearing, is that's the primary concern of many. Um, they did open Bourbon Street. We're still at a level 2, but they did open Bourbon Street to a certain extent. Like you still can't, you can only be at 25% capacity. The to-go drinks, you can't have to-go drinks anymore. Of course, the clubs and things like that, live music is still closed, but the restaurants are open primarily on a takeout basis.
Mhm.
So, but you still have people on Bourbon Street. You still have hotels that have parties. You still have people who have private parties and things like that. So the numbers are not increasing to the extent that they once were, but in my opinion, they're not steady enough to want to do a lot of the things like open the schools back full, you know, full
Right.
time. I really don't think that in the United States at all that the school should open back up
Yeah. Yeah.
this year, not this
Yeah.
year. Um,
I agree. I agree.
yeah. Yeah, so I mean, you know, I think New Orleans is just like the, you know, any other major city who is looking to, you know, it's a lot of people who lost their businesses. They're going to lose their homes, that don't have any income because, you know, the tourism industry is bottomed out. So I think it's just a concern as to, like, once this is over and everybody's looking for it to be over soon, what do we do then? You know what
Right.
I'm saying?
Yeah. And so in addition to, like, of course, there's an economic concern, but just talking about people, I mean, even people that I know personally who've been affected COVID-19, what they're discovering is that there might even have to be like a special type of disability that is formulated for people who had COVID-19 and have not fully healed from it. Because there
Right.
are reports of people having neurological issues, heart issues, all of these long-term, ailments
Kidney
as a
failure
result
is
of,
one I've been
yes,
hearing. Yeah.
yes, kidney failure. Even what's his name? Scarface went online and was asking people, "I'll pay you because I need a kidney," because he had COVID-19. Yes,
And he was ill already. He had
he was
already
ill.
had yes.
Okay, and it turned into one of his things. It turned into renal failure. So
Wow.
this is another thing that's happening, and I think it's really interesting in how capitalism looks in the United States. Is there's not an understanding that there are actually full people behind how you make money. Like, how you gonna make money
Right.
when
If
everybody is
everybody
sick?
dead
Everybody's sick.
or
Like, how you
sick,
gonna,
you
yeah,
know, yeah.
yeah,
And you think about what the productivity will be like once people have to go back to work and literally their lives are in danger, you know?
right. And you heard the thing about, what was it? I forgot how many, was it 19,000 Amazon workers tested positive for COVID-19? Like,
Yes. And even when you're looking at our, you know, our leaders of the United States, you have 30 some odd people on the cabinet or in the administration that has it now.
right.
You know?
Yeah, they called it the super spreader. I said that sounds
Right.
like a really bad orgy that happened at some frat party. Nobody was wearing protection. Everybody got burnt. Yeah. And
Everybody.
then the Harris campaign, 2 people tested positive, her
Okay.
communications person and the pilot that flies her around. So, this is a serious issue, and all these strains that are popping up. And winter is coming still. Like, we haven't even faced COVID with winter yet.
Yeah, the flu season is definitely upon us, and the coldest months of the year. You know, it's really going to be interesting to see. I think I thought originally that the Trump catching it would be a wake up call to many, and it wasn't. It didn't mean anything. And the truth of the matter is, many people who have COVID a lot of people will not survive it.
Mm-hmm.
And if they do survive it, like you said, there's these lingering conditions that go on, and you're not going to get the stem cells and, and all of the shit that Trump got. You know what I mean?
Right.
So I think it's really, in fact, I think him catching it backfired.
Mm.
Because now it's like, oh, it didn't even hurt him. He was only in the hospital for, 2 or 3 days and he's fine. But we're not going to get that same type of medical treatment that he received.
Right.
So, it's
yeah, that free great medical care that he gets on the taxpayer's dollar, even though
right.
he pays $750
right.
dollars a year in taxes.
Right. And he got the best of the best, and his administration will as well, because he can't afford for his people to start dying on his watch, even though 210,000 Americans did.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So, the numbers speak for themselves. You never really heard them say too much about the number, the sheer magnitude of people who have gotten it. Even in neither debate did Trump nor Pence acknowledge those people who had passed from this.
Yeah, you know what? I never. Yeah, that's an excellent point. And what the administration for the next 4 years after this voting that's going to happen, this major election, their core must be focused on the recovery from coronavirus, which leads to the early voting that is taking place, right?
Right. So this week is when early voting starts everywhere. So, some people have already, some states have already started. In New Orleans, we'll start early voting tomorrow. But my sister-in-law went out to vote yesterday, and she sent us a picture of a line around the corner for the first day of early voting. And I think that this is setting the stage for what is definitely a contentious election. But also, I think you're going to see voters in record number turnouts this year, up until the day of the election. Now, my primary concern with that is that the rampant, and I think it's on both sides, really, voter intimidation. And when I say it's on both sides, we have the Trump militias, militias and things like that who are trying to stifle the voting. But I think on the Democratic side, you have another issue is where they're shaming people into voting. And I think the problem with that is that, of course, everybody should exercise their rights in whichever way they see fit. But it's almost like you failed your people, you failed your community. Even if you don't like either one of these people, you have to vote for, for whoever. But I think on the Democratic side, I feel like when they're saying just vote, they're not saying just vote. They're saying just vote Democrat.
Right.
Because the notion is that all of these middle ground voters are going to vote Democrat, and that's not necessarily the case. And I think that's what we found out with the 2016 election.
Right. And that's a really good point. And I also wanted to say in terms of like early voting, like even in Georgia, there were reports of people waiting for over 11 hours to vote. And in that particular case, in Georgia, they purchased a new voting system. And the voting system, the voting, even though they purchased $104 million voting system, there were glitches. It was failing, and and so you add that on. So Georgia, Illinois are just what is to come. In terms of like what, so you're right. There's record numbers, not only record numbers of voting, but record numbers of early voting.
Right.
When you have a shitty USPS, a postal system, you have polling sites that have been closed down. You have voting systems that are either new and failing or old and failing. So there's just a lot of issues in that whole process that are going. Another thing that to me that concerns me a lot goes back to you talk about voter shaming. So this idea of go out and vote to me has been emphasized so much that the full process of being a citizen and how to place accountability on those in elected office to me fails, right? Okay. I've said this, like voting is like the simplest thing you could do. Go in, even if you have to spend a day, you cast your ballot and you leave. But holding those people accountable, going to town hall meetings, understanding the issues, those are things that I think get lost in this narrative of vote because your ancestors died to vote, and you ain't shit if you don't vote, and you ain't shit if you don't vote for XYZ. What is happening is there's a huge pushback now against that. You can't shame a population of people whose backs are against the wall. They're the poorest, You know what I'm saying? And all this stuff happens, and then you're gonna turn around and tell them you ain't shit because you didn't vote a certain way. There's only certain, you know what I mean, there's a certain point to where people are gonna totally just kind of bow out of the process entirely. And so that backfire. It's backfiring. And then on top of that, let's I've been saying this because I love me some Jaguar White. Let's keep it up, Bean. People are not enthusiastic about the candidates.
But how could you be? How could you be? Look at what we have to choose from. It's like the Hillary Trump campaign turned on its ear. You have, Biden, who is really riding the wave of the Barack Obama administration.
Right. And Kamala Harris.
Right.
Right.
So, and you have Trump, who is perpetually Trump, and so, like, if you even go back to the debates, neither Trump nor Biden made their points clear. Mm-hmm. It was a circus act. You had Biden calling him a clown and this type of shit and telling them to shut up. That's something Kamala Harris would not have been able to do in her debate. If she would have started name calling and doing all of that other stuff, she would have, her shit would have been over.
Right. It
would have been over. So it's like you really have two sides of the same coin in a lot of ways. It's all politics. So it's just really a matter of, I don't even think it's a matter of the lesser of two evils. I think it's just, at this point, voting for whoever you like the best. I mean, that's really all it is at this point.
Well, another thing is that there's more than just the presidential vote.
Exactly.
You know what I'm saying? Like my thing has always been your local officials are the ones that will impact you on the daily and directly. Right. Invest in understanding the issues, knowing them, going on websites. I mean, there are a lot of websites that will show you not only the elected officials, but things that are on the ballot, the measures that are taking place, the important measures that are taking place. Know all of that. That is so, so important. And I think we get caught up into the presidential elections, which are problematic with the electoral college that goes on, which basically, in my opinion, are former slave masters that said we cannot give these slaves and this poor white trash we cannot give them the voting power. Thus we must maintain a certain elite type of body in order to vote the president in. Vote local. Yeah, that's important. I can't say that enough.
Right.
But yeah.
And the thing with voting local is also know your judges, not just your governor, not just your mayor. Know who your judges are. Know who your comptroller is. Understand how your taxes.
Your district attorney
is right, or even your attorney general, because these are the people who are interpreting the laws. Mm-hmm. They're not just the people who are enforcing the laws, they're interpreting the law. So if they interpret a law that is contrary to how you live, that's going to affect you much more so than the presidency directly. So, I mean, we just have to, when we say vote, and when we talk about the importance of voting, usually the mainstream thing is for the president. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? And that's how people think of it in terms of the president. Mm-hmm. And like you said, that's not even important. I mean, many people can't even name their senators or their Congress people, who represent them in their communities. So, a lot of things that we're blaming the president for is really things that are going down locally in our states, in our cities.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm glad you said thing about the judges. So let's talk about Amy Coney Barrett, right? Let's talk about right now. She is in the midst of more than likely being confirmed as a U.S. Supreme Court justice. She is several days in. with the hearings, and several things came up. You mentioned one, I'll mention one is that she refused to tell the senators that if she had to vote in the decision to overturn or protecting birth control, she refused to comment on that, or even overturning same-sex marriages. She refused to do that. And then you talked about another thing that she had mentioned as well in terms of workplace protection.
Yes. So she apparently voted in, I don't have the year in front of me. I want to say 2008, but that may be incorrect. But she voted that saying nigga or nigger with the hard R
Nigger,
in the
yes,
work
nigger.
in the workplace did not necessarily mean that it is a hostile work environment. So
Right.
yes.
Yeah. So Amy Coney Barrett is a conservative Catholic out of Louisiana. Even if you understand the history of Louisiana, at one point, Louisiana had the highest number of enslaved Black folk there. The relationship between Black people and white people is fraught with a lot of, very interesting history. So for those of you, when you think Louisiana, you automatically think Creole and some light-skinned mulatto, whatever running around. That's like the falsest narrative ever.
Right.
So she's this conservative Catholic. I was raised Catholic. You want to run from a conservative Catholic, because a conservative Catholic will hide your birth control, but then will hide the priest that's touching the little boys. What this is doing, though, is that a Barrett confirmation will assuredly place a conservative Supreme Court justice. So what people are doing now is that, one, people have to brace for what's to come in decades more, but also saying that how that could be kind of tempered or mitigated is the Democratic having a Senate and House or full Congress controlled Democratic Congress, fully Democratic Congress for as long as possible. That's why voting locally and understanding that is important. But I have to say this, though: all Democrat, skin folk ain't your kinfolk.
No.
I'm sorry to say that.
Right. And she will absolutely get confirmed. I have the fact that they didn't fight harder to delay this confirmation, I think is very telling. Right. Because we saw with Barack Obama that the Republicans were not going to let him submit his pick for the Supreme Court justice in an election year, period.
Right.
They didn't give a fuck. Let me just say it just like that. Like, I don't care what happens, this is not going to happen. Democrats could have made that same push. They didn't. So yes, she's going to get confirmed, and then there will be this uproar about what we already know. About who we already know she is. That's why she was chosen. So what is the point really in arguing and complaining about it if you're going to, you're gonna roll with it anyway? How if you're not going to vote locally, this is not going to be a decision that is made by President Trump if he is indeed president in January 2021. Right. And but even if Biden, if she gets through, even if Biden becomes the president, it won't be it's a done deal. Right. It's a done deal.
And I think it's also important Coney Barrett is the U.S. Supreme Court justice is not the only kind of judge that is in the confirmation process. Trump has nominated over 200 judges thus far, but the process is that Trump nominates a judge, but the Senate has got to confirm the judge. Right. Look at how your Democratic senators are voting on confirming these judges, because it's come out that some of these Democratic senators are agreeing to these Republican or these GOP-centric judges. But President Carter has been the only president. Jimmy Carter has been the only president that has put in more judges in the district court than federal district court than Trump. So we'll see how that goes. I also want to say this, even also about the voting, about the census, right? So this
Right.
thing with the census. So I hope you guys got your census information in. I don't know what the funding is going to look like with all these things, because they said that the census, there's been low turnouts for census. This is really a really kind of interesting space that we're in.
Right.
So, but also talking about that, the stimulus, right?
Right.
So right. Yeah, go ahead. I'm gonna let you go ahead.
Oh, there's one thing that I wanted to mention with the Amy Coney Barrett just before we walk away from that. I thought it was interesting, the I guess I'll call it a monologue that Kamala Harris did at the beginning of Coney Barrett's confirmation hearing on day one. She kind of, I don't want to call it a tirade. Maybe I'll just call it a rant, or maybe it was just a speech. Okay. But I thought it was interesting how during that confirmation hearing, Kamala Harris reiterated all of her debate points as she was talking to Coney Barrett, and it again, an attempt, I feel like, to shame her for even being a part of the process, and not to say that she wasn't supposed to do that. Maybe that's her, that's the gig, I guess. But I just really thought that it was interesting the way that they're playing politics now in the middle of this year. We know that she's going to get confirmed. We know that you're not going through this whole process to not confirm her. So I guess my question would be, let me think about that again. But I just wanted to
jump in. Let me jump in on that. I think it's really kind of interesting for me, in my opinion, how a lot of, like, some of the kind of tough or controversial politics that's played is often on a woman. One, I think that's really interesting.
Yes.
And two, this is a fact. The Republican Party does a better job in diversifying who they put into, different, historically. I ain't saying about the Trump. I'm not saying about Trump. But historically, they have put more people who fall under the category in the United States as minority, historically, Republicans have than Democrats have. But I think it's it's this really kind of interesting thing that Amy Coney Barrett becomes the face of The Handmaid's Tale. When there are a whole bunch of, I forgot in The Handmaid's Tale what the name of what the guy was. There's a whole bunch of them, in office. But it's a really, as a woman, you look at these things, and it becomes like this really kind of interesting dance on how body politics is on the female body.
Well, that's interesting that you brought that up, because I was talking to my husband the other day about this Rihanna Savage Fenty what is it called? Fashion show. just escaped me. So the fashion show, and what you saw was a lot of body positive, I don't want to call it propaganda, but images and in lingerie. So we had Lizzo, we had
Lizzo was in there?
Oh, Lizzo.
Okay.
Doing her thing. She was twerking and everything. Girl, had a solo. Yeah, but and she had a solo performance in it. But I think we know that about Rihanna right now, especially in terms of women. But I think the thing that caught most people's attention were the men this time.
Hey.
Hey, right. you have the infamous dad bod that was on display in her show, and men, and her line ended up selling out. And men were really like, you know, they have some of the same issues as women that we don't talk about so much. You know, we see that they have body shapers for men as well. And I know they wear them. I'm not going to say how I know, but I know they wear them. And
oh, I got a story on that one. My dad had one. Damn near put him in the hospital. He was trying to be cute at a wedding. Was
because they need their clothes to fit too, girl. You know what they
put them in the hospital. Yep.
Right. So I think that it was really a good thing to see in but at the same time it was shocking. And you would think that it would not be, but to see regular men and they lingerie draws dancing
they
around.
They done that on.
You know, it was I could see how it would be empowering for men who also have body image issues. I could see that she took a risk by having even the models on her website who are the same, you know, that you know, displayed the clothes in the same way. And the fact that this is shocking, the fact that it is something that you have to take notice of is still sad. In a lot of ways, you know. I don't know if you've ever had the opportunity to see Lovecraft County yet.
No, I haven't seen it
Okay,
yet.
so there was a character who was played by Anjanou Ellis, Hippolyta.
Oh
Yes,
yes.
and
I love her
51.
acting. She's a shout out to her. She's not only an artist, but she's an activist. She was one of the people behind getting the flag, the Confederate flag down. In the state of Mississippi, because she's a Mississippian. Okay. I'm sorry.
Well, no, the thing about it was in one of the episodes, she was playing, she wanted to go back in time and dance with Josephine Baker. And she did it with her natural body. You know, she didn't have any waist trainers or anything. That she was just her 50-year-old, you know, Black woman self, and what that looks like, you know what I mean? And it was unapologetic. It wasn't like she was trying to cover up. It was like, this is just this is what it looks like, you know what I mean? And the fact that in the very next scene she becomes a warrior, and she's learning how to go through battle because she time traveled. You would have to see the whole thing.
Okay, I'm all into it. I'm like, what? Really?
Right. So without telling too much of it, but it was in her form as a sexual being, a woman full of her divine feminine as it is. And that's what I think that men don't have the opportunity to do, especially Black men. I don't know if we shame Black men as much. I'm not sure in terms of, you know, being overweight and things like that. But I can imagine still, even as a man being in the United States, you know, there's a way that you're supposed to look.
Well, I would say this, that in Hollywood, in mainstream media, the nerd or the misshapen or let me take that back. I didn't mean to say that, but the male body that is not in shape has more so than not been assigned to white males. And there were like these string of movies that have this like nerdy, quirky, socially awkward white male who's not in shape, but wins a blonde girl who is in shape, who like that whole whatever that whole thing is. When there is a Black male that looks like that, usually they're just there for comic relief. Rarely do they have a love interest or whatever that is. But I think that's really interesting that that trope is assigned to white males. But yeah, you know, Rihanna will always be my spirit animal. Okay.
Oh, I love her. You know, and she's like unapologetically who
Right.
she is, whatever the hell else is going on. And I think that she took a risk. I think it definitely paid off.
Right.
And you know, she's getting about her money, and she's getting about her status. You know, her she's taken seriously in the spaces that she's in. She has a seat
Right.
at the
Right.
table, but she created her own. And I think that was the important part about it, is creating your own economic, you know, solvency, and creating opportunities for whoever it is that's coming behind you or next to you or under you, or however you want to, you know, decide to do that. So I think that, you know, she made a definite power play, and she won so far. So
So
we'll
far,
see.
yeah.
Yeah. So
I would say this, just, you know, kind of hearing things that I cannot necessarily confirm that go on the entertainment industry. Her doing this, you know, there's high costs
oh
that, you
yes.
know what I'm saying, that are involved in, you know, doing this.
Hmm.
And in terms of financiers and money and so on and so forth. But what she is doing, and I have to salute her, and I think kind of like the next half of what we're talking about is about artists who are
Hmm.
flipping their star power into kind of, you know, in their own way, you know, generating or pushing, um,
Hmm.
um, pushing it. I appreciate that. I totally appreciate that about her.
Hmm.
And I would say the business savvy in it is, I'm not gonna lie, I have not bought lingerie or some cute bras in a very long time. But
Right.
what a pandemic safe luxury item to market.
Oh,
You know, it's
there's definitely that.
right.
There's definitely that.
I have to give credit. But word on the curb is, I had heard, and I can totally say, Rihanna, baby girl, you need to get your nonprofit together. It's looking kind of funky.
Uh-oh.
Okay. All right,
Uh-oh.
that was it. That was
That's
it.
another conversation for
That's
another.
another conversation. But word on the curb is,
Right.
you need to get some more melanin peoples up in there doing the work that have your best interest at heart. That's just the word on the curb.
Right.
You know, that's it. Which is, you know, you've talked about that often, because you worked with organizations that are launched by celebrities or athletes, or, you know, people with some money. Is that the intentions are always good, but
Hmm.
the execution and who you leave it to run it often goes down the toilet. But that's
Yeah, you're probably gonna see that more often than not, because people confuse nonprofit organizations to be these like altruistic things. They're still businesses.
mm,
When you say nonprofit, it doesn't mean that the organization doesn't bring in any money. It just means that no one individual person will profit or gain, but they still make money. They still get salaries. And that's what a lot of those operating budgets do. So when you have a nonprofit and the CEO is making, you know, upwards of $500,000 a year to $1 million a year at the biggest nonprofits, they're benefiting just like they would from any other business. It's just not stock options and dividends and things like that. So anytime you get into the business of anything, and when you get into the business of poor people and underserved population, trust and believe it is always first and foremost a business.
that's some wise words. We're going to talk about nonprofits. I think that's a really, hopefully when we come together, you and I think that's a really good conversation to have on the Remedy podcast.
Okay.
That's every Wednesday, by the way. Because what I see a lot of, we're starting to see this. When I had the conversation with Mikhail Furness, he was talking about these in particular basketball athletes, pro athletes are using their influence and their money to some degree in order in this voting election process. So
Mhm.
it will be a really kind of exploration of how people are doing that in order to, um, you know, how do I want to say this? In order to handle their money in these very philanthropic ways, right?
Okay.
So that would be really good. But I wanted to go to somebody else, Killer Mike. All right, here we go. So within this past week, rap activist Killer Mike announced Killer Mike announced that he partnered up with the guy who started Bounce TV, Ryan. Oh, I got to get his last name. But Ryan Cooper, I believe is his last name, partnered up with him. And also they brought on a team in order to create the first digital bank that caters to Black and Latinx folk. Okay. Within an hour of it launching, they said that he reported that it was tens of thousands of people that signed up. And I actually signed up, and I was like number 79,000. And that was yesterday. It was like 79,000. It's so right now the process is that you get an email sent to you. The bank officially opens where you can make deposits. It will start in January. What does that say? It's called Greenwood, and it is from the district that was bombed in in Tulsa, Oklahoma, better known as Black Wall Street, which was really just one of several Black Wall Streets that actually existed in the United States, but it's called Greenwood. Okay.
Yeah, I think, well, I bank with a Black-owned bank now myself. And I think that what he's doing is admirable. If you're trying to get some type of economic stability for Black people in particular, you have to, if you're going to stay in the United States and you have to trade money. I mean, as long as they have the infrastructure in place, I think that would be a positive thing. I think the only problem that I've seen, I've been a member of a couple of Black-owned banks, and I think 2 of them went out of business while I was a customer. You know what I mean? And so you have issues like that. Then you have like when Russell Simmons came out with the Rush card. Years ago, and it was that same type of premise, with the prepaid debit card, and we saw how that turned out, So I think that I don't want to sound negative, but so let me just say this. From an economic perspective, they're definitely needed and they're definitely necessary. I don't know how they would work in the benefit of Black people if they're still run primarily by white folks, or if those are the ones infusing the bulk of the money, and otherwise you just have a white bank with a Black face.
Right.
And so I think that's where we really have to look into the leadership. We have to look at how the money is insured.
Right.
One of the things that was interesting when I opened my bank account with the Black-owned bank, one thing they said is that if there's they were like, "Do you want a debit card?" And I'm like, "Well, yeah, I want it." I don't write checks, and they were like, "Well, just be clear. I had to sign a waiver that said if my card is stolen or anything like that, they are not going to cover it."
Wow.
And that's the first time that I've ever had that. I from a bank that said, if your card is stolen, even, they were just like, you kind of on your own in that regard. So those kind of things, it makes it hard. It makes it harder for us because I could go to Bank of America, Capital One, Chase, or what have you, and have my money insured and protected, as much as you can, I guess, in the system like this. But then I go to, us, and it's like, well, we'll hold your money for you, but we don't have anything else in the place that's going to secure it for you.
So, so on that, when I started Arc Republic, it was around the time that Killer Mike has been talking about Black economics and empowerment for a very long time. So this isn't anything new. He's not, just coming in and trying to ride the George Floyd wave. Right. He's been very much in the front. What I appreciate, so like being political or engaging even in these public dialogues and discussions, who I am right now in 2020 is not who I was in 2017. So you've got to have, I think, a certain level of, you have to be a certain way to be comfortable with the fact that you might say something now that you may not agree with 3 years later, or you might grow tremendously. I appreciate that about Killer Mike. And you know why I like you, Killer Mike? Because my father's nickname was Killer Shit. So you are. But he put out this call that's, that call for people to go to Black banks. And it actually, tens of thousands of people went to Black banks, and it infused, in particular, one United Bank in Atlanta. I went to the Black bank in Newark to set up Arc Republic. And let me say the benefit of it is that the person who signed me up for my account was very patient, explained things to me, advocated, that I get kind of like the best out of the account that I set up. And then within, I would say maybe a year, I applied for a loan. I didn't get the loan, but what I did get was a credit card, which is extremely hard to get. The woman, I remember her name, Somali, right? Apparently, and I was able, and the people are more accessible because it's a small kind of community-oriented enterprise. But a person in the bank actually went to Arc Republic's site. This is her telling me this. She went to the site. She saw that not only was Arc Republic legitimate, thank goodness, but it actually ran good stories about Black people, about Latinx people, the world affairs, things that she didn't see in the other local mainstream press. And she actually advocated for me in a meeting, which is how I got Arc Republic's credit card, only type of line of credit that I've had thus far, right? So that is the wonderful thing. All the other stuff, horrible customer service, hours, opening up at 9, closing at 12, closing at 3. Like you said, not having a fully like customer service where you can call and you lose your card, like all of these things, which actually damaged me as a client because I couldn't get to my money all the time, and then exorbitant monthly fees. So what Killer Mike was saying is that when he put out the call, he said this, on the Breakfast Club, he said that when he put out the call, there were some things in him banking and then also just talking to people who realized the challenges that Black banks have because they simply don't have the resources that larger commercial banks have. So this Greenwood is supposed to be the answer to that. And there is a lot of small, so fintech, financial technology is the new type of kind of like, what do you call this? Cash cow in the industry. So financial tech and educational tech. So ed tech and fine tech are the two leading things. And so there's a lot of these little companies that are popping up that are offering these online only banking services. So it's not a new thing that Killer Mike is doing, but what he promises, so he says, is that they're going to earmark monies for Black and Latinx businesses that would not get money or would not get loans or the fiscal support that they would get at a commercial bank. My question to you, Rolanda, is that if you were sitting in the board meeting, what are some things, because I believe that Killer Mike is going to see this, and Ryan Cooper, I hope I'm saying this here, Ryan Cooper, what are some things that you think we need, and what does a good digital bank look like that services Black and Latinx folk?
I think that, again, you start with being able to federally insure the funds. I think that, I think having access to and they don't have to be extensive loans, but like micro loans, and
Exactly.
things like that. That we may need. Everybody doesn't need, $1 million in business funds. Sometimes you just need 5,000. But I feel like for Black banks in particular, it's almost harder to qualify through the Black banks, and I think it does have something to do with the money not being insured. I would say that access is the most important. So we understand that, mostly poor people, let's be honest, are going to look at this as an option. People who have their bank accounts closed, people who are in check systems, so they can't get a bank account. What do you have for them? You know what I mean? And especially during a pandemic. A lot of people are out of work. So how much would it be to open this account? How much would you have to keep it open? I would imagine that if you're a startup bank, you can't, waive fees like, one of the larger banks could, but they have to be manageable for the people who you say it's for. You see what I'm saying? So it's just, a bank is a bank. It's, you hold your money and things like that. So we also, because what I'm inclined to do is look at my social service side and be like, oh, they need all this help, but it's still a business. Right. You know what I mean? So, and let's not trip. People will overdraw their account. People will do all kinds of shit, and mess up the money too. So, I mean, I think for what they have in place, I think they're definitely on the right track. I think it's necessary for a large part of the population, but I think they have to have products and incentives that, besides being Black, that would draw people in. You need to not just the people who don't have access to bank accounts, but you actually want those people, those Black people that have a lot of money. You want Jay-Z and Beyonce to, put their money in your bank. So the client relations are going to matter as well, because if you have 100,000 people, and the average that they have, what is the average for Black people? Like $300 in their bank account, on average. So you have 100,000 people, they have $300 in their bank account. They can't give out loans. You see what I'm saying? There's not enough money. So there has to be money. So they're going to have to cater to those people also who have money. So these are just some of the things that I can think of offhand. I'm not an economist by any means.
Right. Yeah. Totally. But I think that, and another thing he did say, thinking of economists, is that they actually hired or recruited some Black people who have years in the game in the banking industry who were not getting promoted, at these banks because of their institutionalized racism. So there are people, insiders, that do have, workable knowledge in terms of how the banks operate. I would say that one of the things that I think, because it's digital, right. So what we do know is that most of the wealth of Black folk in the United States is in baby boomers. So I think part of the job, or part of the work that Killer Mike might have to do is that how do you get more so of those people invested in that as well? You know what I mean?
Yeah, because they're going to want a place to go to.
Exactly.
They're not going to want to do it exclusively online.
So this is what I think. I think that even though there isn't a brick and mortar, I think that he should use the whole concept of a tour and do a tour throughout the United States, but set up these pop-up banks where people could come and sign up and perhaps get, in the process, a class, a credit fixing, credit repair, understanding credit, mortgage, and like not some surface level class that you get, but like a real class that really gets into the nuts and bolts of ownership and things like that, investments. So I think that will be, and you partner with local entities or whatever in order to hold these pop-up banking sessions. Another thing I was thinking about, they've got to have the best customer service you ever want to know, right? Please. And there are so many people that probably you could even put, I mean, I think there will be people that they can even pick that are actually maybe even, what do you call this? What do they call this? When you own and you work for it, what is it called? Worker owned?
A co-op?
Yeah, like a co-op. So even like people, even pulling from people that actually have accounts, you've got to have a customer service. And I mean, not a customer service. Well, on one hand, yes, one that is, that is hospitable and speaks to you and things like that. But whatever that concierge type of customer service thing you need to add to that, that's important. There also needs to be a tech infrastructure, advertisement and marketing that is all located in the United States, and shows and put out a report showing how many people there are Black, Latinx, and service are actually, this goes back to what you were talking about, or reflective of those who you're trying to service. I think there needs to be money earmarked for special interest groups that we need in order to kind of help create this institution or maintain Black folk, like Black farmers. There should be money earmarked for Black farmers, cannabis growers, or the people in the cannabis industry, teachers, college students, and even those in fast food working. Like, there should be some type of incentive to help, I think, activate these people and their money. Right. I agree. There needs to be a tier system of loans that is implemented. And then finally, I think that some of the identity needs to be kind of like a credit union. So let's just say if I wanted to join, so let's just say I wanted to join, Rolanda and Kaia's credit union. But in order for me to join, I had to have a membership I had to live in New Orleans. Well, if you don't live in New Orleans, this is how a lot of like credit unions operate. So a lot of these credit unions, they say, well, if you don't live in New Orleans, you need to join, the Spencer and Shivers nonprofit, or donate $7 to the Spencer and Shivers nonprofit. And then that money will go to the nonprofit. Well, this Greenwood Trust can have like a rolling thing where they could have like, well, you could join and you could deposit, but perhaps maybe there's this VIP where if you donate $7 to a nonprofit organization, you'll blah, 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 blah. But that money every month will be divvied up or given to actual groups that are doing work, right?
Yeah, I think that would be, especially in terms of when we're talking about as a community, cooperative economics. Yes. Because that would really just go back. And I don't know if any Black banks are seriously doing cooperative economics, in the way that we need. You have to already have the money to come in and get more money. So it kind of has to be the other way around. So I agree. I agree with that.
Yeah. So those are some things I was just kind of thinking about. So I'm really interested, but you raised some really good concerns about it, because a lot of these, people who are considered celebrities are now being called out for scams, like Killer Mike's, homie, T.I., that he shouts out and works with, had to pay when he was investigated by the SEC for the Bitcoin, or not the Bitcoin, but it was the cryptocurrency. He was marketing a cryptocurrency as him owning it, and he ended up paying a fine. So those are the things, that we need to work on.
And I think that we always get into a position where I think Black people have to remember that you can't really do business like white folks. We can't. And that's the truth. I mean, the loopholes that are for them are for them. Those are the loopholes that hang us. You know what I mean? So it's T.I., I don't think was doing anything other than doing business. But the way he did it, here we are. He has a fine. And I think that especially now, Black folks are looking at the way that we use our power, we use our politics, especially with our celebrities, or I don't want to call them community leaders, because I'm not going to call them community leaders. Let me just say that.
Right.
But those people who are in the forefront and in the spotlight, how they use their platform. So if you are misrepresenting yourself in any kind of way, especially in the way culture is today, you're going to get called out. Right. Always. But we have to remember that we can't do business like them. I think Chris Rock said, like, if you're, and I'm paraphrasing, of course, but whatever work you got to do, it got to be good shit. You know what I'm saying? You can't profit. What he said is, you can't profit off pain. We cannot. You see what I'm saying? That's why we have to have the nonprofit organizations and fight each other for grants and do all of this. But I'm gonna that's going off on another time. I'm gonna start talking.
No. I mean, it's some really good. I mean, it's some really good points. I'm really kind of interested to see what T.I. And Leonard, Charlemagne is going to do with these opportunity zone that they said that they started with Nipsey Hussle. And Nipsey Hussle's one of the main partner, David Gross, in Los Angeles, right? So I think one of the I would say the challenges, or one of the challenges, and this goes with all type of people, is that we assume that because you see people's faces every day in front of a camera or behind a mic, people assume that they're smarter than most people really are, that they have access and resources that they really have. And what they promote is actually 100% theirs, right? This is their entertainment. A lot of this is smoking mirrors anyway.
Right. So speaking of that, then, I mean, I think that's going to take us into our last, little discussion here. Okay. Let's look at what's happening with Ice Cube right now. He had
that was up from Ghetto Bird.
Now let me preface this by saying I love Ice Cube. I always have. Okay, but I'm not biased.
From LA, y'all. So
of course, that's what we gotta do.
Throwing up the W.
So I will preface this by saying I love Ice Cube, and I always have. But let's talk about this contract with Black America and the subsequent platinum plan that is supposed to be bestowed upon us by the Trump administration. Let me hear your thoughts first.
Ooh! First of all, I need to say, whistle down the street to my homie like a bird, bust a U, turn back and get served. that's like one of my, okay, anyway. So I have to say, I think, like, yeah, when did I go to it? Like, anyway, I am like Rolanda. I am all things Ice Cube, maybe from the Predator on back. The Predator album on back. It's not that I fell out of love with Ice Cube, but like when he started making the movies, you know what I'm saying? The family movies, I was like, that's cute. You know what I'm saying?
The kinder, gentler Ice Cube.
I'm still trying to go on this summer vacation. Get my LA homie. What? So so okay. So there are quite I'm still let me say this before I go into it. I'm still gathering my thoughts around the plan. I looked over it several times when it first came out. I've heard him on several interviews about it. So I'm still wrapping my head around all of it. So let me tell you some of the things that I think are that draw up questions. The first thing that draws a question with just the contract itself, which was pointed out to him and which he acknowledged is that the lack of the Black woman's voice in it. Right. So so I would and the collaborators, right? So all the people, and he had said that the people who helped him create this contract, because, which I think is very interesting, that he is the face of the contract. I'm still trying to understand, did he have the idea and pitch it to people, or did he have
I
like a
think it was the other
skeleton?
way around.
Or yeah, so yeah, okay. So right, and so he becomes the face of the contract. I would be
Mhm.
very interested in seeing all of the players that were involved in the different components discuss it, as opposed to him coming on and talking about it. Love you, Q, but some of the things that he says, I would like to have more texture and nuance, and
Okay.
understanding, and kind of laying out things with a little bit more clear, with a little bit more clarity.
Right,
With
right.
that being said, um, it, it, there, so with that being said, I am very hypercritical of just celebrities, because I always think that they could be doing more.
Right, right,
I
right.
don't know what Ice Cube has done for communities, Black communities, up until this point, other than
Okay.
produce, you know what I'm saying, some really good albums back in the 90s,
Hmm.
you know what I'm saying, in early 2000s, which to me makes me pause, because he had some brilliant stuff that critiqued the government, that critiqued the system. He
Hmm.
lives a fabulous, nice life. And then when shit cracks up, he wants to come out and have this contract for Black America. And
Hmm.
then, it's like, yeah, you guys, I want this support, or blah, blah, blah. You know what I'm saying? I'm putting some things out there. But
Hmm.
I'm not knocking it. So these are the reservations that I had, and kind of seeing all of this. And also understanding how it is evolving. I saw that he had a meeting with a couple of another man,
Of course.
about the contract, but I'm really interested in its evolution with that.
And I think I think it's good to be critical of anybody who puts out something that's supposed to be for Black America, like this
Right,
blanket thing,
right,
because all voices of Black America are not going to be heard.
right.
And one thing that we discussed before, Ice Cube is not by any means poor, right? He doesn't need necessarily the social services and things like that. Not, his interests are going to be different.
Mm-hmm.
They just are, just by virtue of his position. And also his access to the administration is going to be different. Let's talk a little bit about how, he is sitting down with Trump, and the backlash he's receiving behind it.
Right.
I look at it a lot like.
So could you kind of just
I'm
lay
sorry.
out what happened, and then, yeah, for folk who
Okay.
don't know the whole thing. Right.
So from my understanding, Ice Cube presented this plan, this contract with Black America, CWBA, that you'll see in an acronym. He put forth this contract to the Biden and Harris campaign, and to the Trump administration, to discuss the points, to see if there could be anything worked out. Cube's position has been, you are going to have to work for my vote. So let's see who's saying what. So the objective, from my understanding, was him to be able to sit down with all sides and come to some kind of agreement. However, the Biden campaign kind of passed until, after the election. And which to me is like, if you lose, then there's no conversation anyway. So
Right.
yeah.
Yeah. So
So
the Biden campaign said, well, we'll discuss it, or we'll come back to the table after the election.
after the election, and Trump said, well, let's move. Let's look at it now. Now, one thing that I think that people have to remember is that Trump, first and foremost, is an entertainer. He's not a politician. He's not an actor. He's not a creative of any kind. He's not even really a businessman.
Right, I'm about to say he's a horrible business person.
Right. He's an entertainer. And I do believe that his classism, no pun intended, trumps his racism. So if you got the money and the status, that's going to put him, he's a narcissist. Right? First and foremost. So whatever he has to do to be put in the forefront in a positive light, he's going to do it, even if he has to use rappers or black people or HBCUs to do it.
Or
now,
rednecks or
whoever it is, right?
Wolverine, Watchmen, he'll use whomever he needs. And in order to have power too, in order to place himself in power.
Exactly. But we cannot ever forget Bill Clinton did the same thing when he went on the Arsenio Hall show playing the saxophone and shit. When Hillary Clinton got on her shit with the hot sauce in her bag, that shit was offensive. Let's keep that all the way funky. That was offensive. Right. Right. That was offensive. They all pander to Barack Obama with his all his pictures of Beyonce and Jay-Z and them doing work together. They were
singing
all
Al Green. Well, that was
it's all
have a great voice, Obama. Your voice is lovely.
But it's all political theater, right? It's all of them being used, and I look at it like when we first started hating Kanye for talking to Trump. Okay, when everybody got on Kanye's ass about meeting with Trump, but I had to think about this. Let's think of this as regular people for a second. You have Kanye West. You have Barack Obama, who called him a jackass on national TV because of let's think about
because
this.
Of jumping on the stage.
Jumping on the stage. You have the first Black president of the United States call you by name a jackass. I wouldn't be feeling Barack Obama under no circumstances after that. Right.
Even and look, let me add this on this. I'm sorry, Rolanda, and I'm gonna let you talk. I apologize. Even before that, Kanye has the reputation of getting, remember, it was the aid for Hurricane Katrina, and he was like, Bush don't like black people. That was like the bomb drop. Everybody was like, oh, Kanye.
Right.
So he called out a president's straight up racism and neglect of people.
Right. And that was how we first started seeing Kanye as this, I don't want to call him a political figure because that's not what it, but this voice of a generation, right? That's when we started kind of looking at him in that way. So, and I say that to say, so when Trump would entertain an audience with Kanye West as president, it made sense to me. He wasn't going to be able to sit down with Barack Obama, even if he's crazy or bipolar or whatever. He wasn't going to be able to have an audience with Barack Obama or Michelle Obama. However, he and his wife were able to get an audience with Trump. Whatever it was, they were able to get what they needed. It might not have been what we needed, but it was what they needed at the time, and he indulged that. I think you're seeing the same thing with Ice Cube right now. He gave it like, whoever, I got this for everybody. I got some for everybody. You just tell me who wants it. And Biden was like, fuck you. Until after, let's see if I win first, because I'm not even going to entertain it. And we also have to remember that Biden has not been solid on his position on Black Lives Matter. So we have to remember these things.
He has a very harmful position in terms of legalizing marijuana or not legalizing marijuana.
Now, Kamala Harris said in the debate that they were going to legalize marijuana. She said that. I never heard Biden say it, but she did say it in no uncertain terms during the debate. However, we've seen Biden and Harris do tremendous harm to the Black community in the past.
Right. On
we've seen it
charges specifically.
Exactly. So we've seen how they play as well. So to consider, to say that one is going to have a better position over the other, I'm nonpartisan. I'm not a Democrat or a Republican. Like anybody else, I'm going to vote in my best interest, in the best interest of my family and my people. Right. But I can't say, I think the problem with Trump is that he's so dangerous in his stupidity. And I
Mm-hmm.
and maybe it's not, maybe stupidity is not the right word. His ignorance.
Mm-hmm.
His ignorance plays over and over in every tweet, in
Right.
every speech, and things like that. So,
Right.
but on the flip side of that, he is the fucking president.
Right. 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 Exactly.
He's
I
the
think.
president. So if there's a play to be had with Ice Cube, who else are you going to go to that can do more than him, even if it's for political theater?
Right. 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 Yeah, yeah, so yeah, so in particular, in terms of knowing the backstory of what happened and him presenting it, I would say this. I think that the Trump, so this I've always say this is that I think we give too much kind of energy and credit to Trump and not to his handlers. Whoever his handlers are,
Thank you.
they do an excellent job. Okay, because those are
Right.
the people that are actually running the administration and not Trump. Trump
Mm-hmm.
is just getting really bad tans and spray tans and all this other stuff. That's a whole
He's
other.
the figurehead.
Yes, he is totally
That's
the
it.
figurehead.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe Ivanka Trump is the president. So, that's one thing I have to say about that. But I would say that I think the Trump presidency or the Trump campaign administration did what it always does. Did the same thing with the HBCU presidents. Did the same thing with Steve Harvey. Did the same. We're gonna do the same thing Eddie did with Kanye West. All this kind of dick politic is making me sick. But anyway, it invites them in and says that they're very interested.
Mm-hmm.
Then people bring their stuff or whatever it is, but when the Trump gets whatever it is that the Trump wants, then they discard
Mm-hmm.
the person, right? And
Mm-hmm.
I think that is going to play out in the Trump administration.
Mm-hmm.
It would be the consistent thing that Trump does. However, there is a fight over the stimulus right now because Trump wants to pass a $1.8 billion stimulus, which McConnell does not, and the Republicans do not want to do that. So that's a whole other thing.
Trump got to do it to get reelected.
Yeah, Trump has got to do it to reelect it. And this is Trump being Trump. He don't care about nobody, right?
And that's the point, right?
You know what I'm saying? Like he did that to their own Republicans. He talking about people's wives. He's doing all this stuff like that. You know what I'm saying? You got an ugly wife, and then he's like, and kiss the pinky ring. You know what I'm saying? So
Right.
yeah, so I would.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, so I would say that, and I think also the Biden-Harris campaign did exactly what Democrats have been doing to Black folk, is egging them. You know what I'm saying?
Wait.
Exactly. Wait, no. After, like I said, Clyburn handed Biden the Black vote in South Carolina, it has been the Black vote since. And really, even though that there is a Lift Every Voice the Lift Every Voice plan for Black
Mm-hmm.
America,
Mm-hmm.
which is the Biden one, which I think is I'm offended by that. Like, why does it have to? Why are you taking Black culture? Because the Platinum Plan is also a play. You know what I'm saying? It's a play on hip hop culture, right?
I didn't even want to call it that.
Yeah. So it's this, like, you know what I'm saying? And then you have the hip hop rapper come, pull that out. But they did exactly what they've been doing to Black folk. They expect everything, but give very little, if they give anything at all, or just give you enough to survive in order to make it to the ballot and vote for them. And then, it's just like a bad transaction between a sex worker and a John.
And that's where we're at now with it, with Ice Cube in particular. Like people say, this is chestnut checkers. I think Ice Cube is playing the hand that he is dealt. I think he would have met with Biden if that would have been presented as an option. However, it was not. I think the same way that people are saying Ice Cube is being used as a pawn, they've all been.
Oh,
because
yes.
they've all been, whether you're Democrat or Republican, if you're in this game, they're using, these are transactions
Right.
that they are attempting to make. So just like Ice, you can't tell me Ice Cube gives a damn about Trump one way or the
Mhm.
other. I don't believe
Well,
that.
he has to date has not endorsed Trump. So that's
Yeah,
another
he hasn't
thing. That
endorsed
wasn't, it wasn't
anybody.
an endorsement. I have to say that.
Exactly.
Yeah,
And
it wasn't an
that's
endorsement.
what people don't understand. He's saying we're having a conversation right now. Who else could you have this conversation with realistically, if
Right.
not with the president, whether you like him or not?
Right.
There's nobody else to have the conversation with, you
Well, I
know?
think there's a lot of people that they could have a
Well, no,
conversation
they
with.
can, but I
Yeah,
mean
yeah,
that
yeah.
can push it through. You see what I'm saying? Um,
I,
in the way that he wants.
what I think Trump does is that he brings people, or he, what is the word, gives people audiences that he thinks that he could control, or that he
Hmm.
thinks that he will have power over, because of his his notions of white privilege and all this other stuff. You know what I'm
I,
saying?
I I feel like it's even kind of lower than that. It's a lower
Wow.
vibration than that. I think it's that Trump wants to be a celebrity.
There
Let's
you
not
go.
let's not forget that when what was the Apprentice and all of that, he used to hang with the hip hop
Right.
crowd.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Russell Simmons was one of his best friends.
Yes, yes, yes,
These are
yes.
Snoop Dogg. He used to hang with Snoop Dogg
Right. Yeah.
and all of this kind of stuff. He's no stranger to the hip hop community. So why are we forgetting this?
Right, right,
He is
right, right.
absolutely no stranger to the hip hop community. I'm not surprised, actually, because that's who he wants. He wants to be that dude,
Right, right, right.
beyond or whatever. And what in what world is being that dude? Like the president is ultimately that dude.
Right. Yeah, yeah,
You
yeah.
see what I'm saying? So I think that it's not even an issue of being you. I think that this was always who Trump was. This is what he's always done.
Right.
You know what I mean? So it's whoever. I think he liked Ice Cube because he hip. You know
Right,
what
right,
I'm saying?
right.
And
And
he
this is
knows
another
the
thing.
name.
Right. And I'm not I don't follow the entertainment business of things as I used to as a
Mhm.
journalist, but I'm pretty sure Ice Cube really wasn't the type of dude to kick it with Trump, which
No,
to
I don't
me,
think he was either, and I
yeah,
don't think he's trying to kick it with him now.
oh, he's definitely not trying to kick it with him at all. You
Right.
see, Ice Cube look like he is in the zone. He growing out his beard. He got a Sufi beard. It's about to be henna. He about to hit a diet. Okay, but yeah. So I think, to me, that garners even a level of respect. Is that you have one of the most well, actually, I would say he probably is the top 3 to 5, maybe 3 performing hip hop artists that actually has sway and influence, and even some level of money
Mhm.
outside of just performing. It's him,
Right.
it's Dre,
Mhm.
and who's the third person I wanted to say? Him, Dre. I can't think it was a third person that came to mind. But Ice Cube has transcended a lot of the things that a lot of people, have not done.
Mhm.
However, I would like to see, like, moving forward. So this is the thing that I have. Well, one, I don't think Ice Cube is a coon. Ice Cube was saying shit that people did not want to say and still would not say. Let me see. We 45. Happy belated birthday, by the way, Rolanda. We
Thank you, Sister
45.
Pearl.
They've been saying it for what, 30 years or something like
Yeah.
that. You know what I mean? So
Mhm.
he's been having a controversial. He's been pushing against the system. Now, albeit, I gotta, there have been some things along the way, like West Coast Cam came and served him a couple of Diddy bops, couple of big binks, and some other things that happened. But that's just whole street hood stuff.
Right.
The problem and so I don't think he's a coon. The problem that I have is in this climate is how we dismiss people so fast. We lost Rolanda. I don't know if her phone died or her thing froze. So I want to say this. My Rolanda left. So I want to say this is that this cancel culture that we have, and I'm going to wrap this up. in this cancel culture that we have, we are so quick to dismiss and eliminate people who might be critical in our evolution, in our development, in our political power. So we should not be so quick to dismiss Ice Cube or anybody else. Rolanda?
Yeah, I'm here. My thing without just.
Okay. So I'm holding it down. I'm holding it down while you're here. So, here we go. So, there we go. Okay. So I was saying this. Oh, thank you. I'm so glad. So I was like, oh, okay. So I was saying in all of this, I would say the biggest problem that I have is the cancel culture sentiment that goes around people who are attempting to move and push the Black agenda, an agenda forward. And so that is, to me, one of the most dangerous energies around this particular issue that we have.
Yeah, and I think the point is, I mean, this is very new for us in terms of this cancel culture, right?
Right.
So whenever we have a viewpoint that somebody doesn't like, you know, it's not just, you know, we're going to cancel them, or we just don't like it. We're going to destroy them, you know, in whichever, financially, we're going to take away their job opportunities. We're going to do all of these things when it's something that you really don't like. And I would even argue it's not even something that you really give a shit about in real life, right? Let's keep it all the way real. You know, people say, you know, I'll cancel them. The person will go out of job. You'll forget you ever even said it. You would forget that you even did anything about it, because let's be real, this is not really important to most people. If Ice Cube does get this contract with Black America, you know, get this platinum plan or whatever, it'll benefit who it benefits, and then they'll sing his praises. If it doesn't, nothing's really going to change. Nothing is going to change if they don't implement it at all. If Trump uses them, it doesn't mean anything for our lives. It doesn't mean that anything is going to change. So what is the damage? What is the harm in what he's doing? And that's what I don't see. I don't see him. Now, when Kanye West, on the other hand, when he came out and he was talking about slavery and all of these other things, it could be damaging in terms of people's interpretation of what he's saying about how they feel about self. I still don't think that he was doing harm to people because his political stance is different. But I can see how they would be up in arms about it. Maybe not so far as to call them names, call them coons and all of this type of stuff. But I can kind of understand a feeling about it. I don't really understand the feeling about this. Joe Biden can't do anything right now. There's nothing that he can do in terms of this, what Cube is trying to put forward. He can't legalize marijuana. He can't do shit right now, but whatever he can do for his state. So to put us in this false position, like this contract or this meeting with Trump will do anything to us personally at this point is false. It can't do anything. It's just a piece of paper. They're going to read it. They're going to talk about it. Either they're going to put some money into it or they're not. If they put money into it, I'm going to try to get the money. I got businesses that I'm trying to start. You know what I'm saying? And if they don't get it, my position won't be any different than it was. And that's how I feel about it. I'm not a Trump supporter by any means. I feel like Trump is dangerous in a lot of ways, especially but primarily for international relations. I think Trump is very dangerous.
Yeah, which is something we definitely need to cover. We need to look at Trump from the outside in, because the way the world looks at the United States, I mean, it's like, like
that's where we're in trouble with Trump. His international policies are shit. He doesn't understand other countries. He doesn't understand other cultures.
And he doesn't want to.
And he doesn't want to. I would say that he's probably more xenophobic than he is racist. And above it all, it's the money that he's looking at. I don't think he cares what color you are if the money is looking good.
Yeah, because money equates to power to him.
Right.
All right. So, okay, final thoughts. I will say just a little something, and I will leave the final word for you. Is that just ending up what I would like to see? I think right now I think where we are now is that we are in a state where everything is being done, everything is being dismantled and being rebuilt. So what we thought or saw as politics of 2019 and before is not going to be how politics and just the order of the day from 2020 now. And in knowing that we have got to, I think, get away from these old kind of like understandings of what it is and how it moves. With that being, so with that being said, if a Trump can run, then we got to make room for other people. You know what I'm saying? Ice Cube for the governor of California. You know
Why not? Why not? Arnold Schwarzenegger was.
Well, I'm gonna tell you a very real and honest story, a very, very short story. One of the last interviews that I did when I was in Los Angeles was with Johnny Cochran, the lawyer, right?
Right.
So 2 things I need to say, I'll put this on record, is one, Johnny Cochran, according to him, as he told me, the O.J. Simpson case was not his hallmark case. His hallmark case was getting Geronimo G. Jaga Pratt out of jail for after I think like 27 years. He worked for this man pro bono. And this is Johnny Cochran telling me in his house, I think his house was somewhere by the amphitheater. Okay. But if I could remember, he's telling me that it was in defending or working pro bono for Geronimo G. Jaga Pratt, who was Tupac's godfather.
Right.
Okay. So Geronimo G. Jaga Pratt was a Black Panther involved, and he was set up and framed. He went to jail for 27 years. He was released. He died within less than maybe 10 years of him being released. But this is when Johnny Cochran begins to find out about how serious intelligence agencies are. He was tapped. He said his office was tapped, his car was tapped, his house was tapped, and everything. So he begins to find out about the seriousness of what that looks like. 100% respect that. We got on the whole topic of Tupac, right? Tupac being Geronimo G. Jaga Pratt's godson. Geronimo, who's now an ancestor, tells Tupac, go to Johnny Cochran. He'll help you out. Because at this time, Johnny Cochran was in this really kind of this legal issue with Outkast. You remember Outkast had a song called Rosa Parks?
Yes.
And then Rosa Parks, they came out, you just destroyed my name, right? And so all that stuff like that. Okay, anyway. So what he said is that Tupac came to him to get out of the contracts that he had with Death Row and Suge Knight. And he wanted to get out of all of these binding contracts that he had and actually move away from the entertainment industry. Here we go. Because he wanted to run to be the governor of California. That was his political aspiration. And he was like, the people love me. And I believe if he would have been able to have lived, he would have been the governor. He would have won. Hands down.
Definitely.
I was, so I wrote a paper called Tupac for Governor. I don't know what I did, but yeah. So when I say Ice Cube for the governor of California, hey, who knows? But you need.
Why not? I mean, right. But I would say, I'm sorry, were you finished?
I'm finished. That's my
point. Okay. Yeah, I would say that, all of this during this election season that we've been discussing, they all kind of go together.
Right.
You know what I mean? All of this is just kind of, I think a lot of it is political theater. I think a lot of it is just pandering to the votes that you're trying to get. Just like I think this is it's just like any other political season. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? But you have Trump and you have this COVID, and then you have the race stuff that's happening in the background, and we want somebody to blame, and we want somebody to put on the hook, and it's for everything right now. I think it's for everything that can be politicized, and it's falling to either you love Trump or you don't.
Right.
I think it's dangerous to center our political power on Trump.
Right.
Because like we said, he's just a figurehead. Trump, I would be surprised if Trump knew what was going on anyway with anything. You know
Right.
what I'm saying? He doesn't strike me as somebody. What we have to look at is not Trump so much as the people.
Mm-hmm.
It's no matter how this election shakes out, people are going to act a fool, either on Biden's side or on Trump's side. People are angry. People are up in arms. People are hungry. People are broke. They have guns. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
And they have this combative spirit right now because of everything that's going on. So I think rather than focusing on the stupidity that Trump speaks or tweets or whatever the hell it is that's going on, look at the people around you. Look at the people who are rolling up on you in the Walgreens, ready to slap your face off because you don't have a mask, or shoot you down in the street. That's not the police, you know, or fight you, or again, cancel you to where you can't work anymore. These things are going to happen no matter who's elected.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
They're going to happen. So if you can't change the people, the president is just kind of, you know, the president gonna roll with whatever you got going on.